Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? I hope you guys enjoyed that. We got a few people text. Hello, Earth Angel. Hello, Onyx Moon. Nice to have you guys hanging out with me on the show today. Ooh, I feel very refreshed. My girlfriend Breeze just said thank you for the healing ceremony. I'm glad it worked well for you, darling. And for everybody else watching, I hope that was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm pretty revved up about it, to be honest with you. That felt very good. So, how's it going, folks? It's been a while since I've done this kind of a informal live stream. I figured today, it's been a little while since I've done this sort of informal thing. I'm going to smoke a joint with you guys at some point. We're going to hang out, and we're going to talk about plans for How to Rock Astrology. So, I hope you guys enjoy that. I wish I had prepared some kind of slide or something like that. I almost feel like for those watching on the film, for those watching at home, as we can see, we are now coming to the section where we're going to talk about how to rock astrology. So, thank you everybody for hanging out with me today. I'm Dustin Cormier, and this is How to Rock Astrology. We've just done a meditation, and I'm feeling nice and in tune. And I figured I'd hang out with you guys and talk a little bit about what's going on in the future with Dustin Cormier in general. You can catch me on my website, dustincormier.net. And in particular, we're talking about how to rock astrology. So thank you so much for showing up with me, folks. As you know, this is a live stream, so I do have my live comments here if anybody wants to ask me any questions as we go along. So, it's been a fun year. As some of you might know, I've been embarking on a course with Ryan Kirksack for 4 years. Ryan Kirksack is a popular astrologer on YouTube, and he is a tropical Vedic astrologer. And this is, I've basically gone through his school in the past 4 years, and I'm just finally finishing. Ryan Kirksack created my school with guidance and inspiration from his fellow student and teacher, Ernst Wilhelm, as well as from his original Jyotish teacher, Richard Fish. And it was a tough course. I did it for 4 years, had 3 semesters in each year. Each semester required that I write an essay, a college-level sort of essay kind of thing. And each essay was like 2,000 words. By the end, I had to write 3 10,000-word papers in year 4, all showing all of the things that we learned from my astrology experience with Asheville Vedic Astrology. For those who are interested, you might notice that I've got this little question mark hanging out on my channel right now. It's the surprise, and I do love when I fully let a surprise come through. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what's going on here, but when you look at the surprise, it's going to come up and you're going to see basically I'm going to be doing a crash course on everything that I learned in Asheville Vedic Astrology. I've really condensed it into quite the diamond. And that is the surprise, basically. You know, I figured for those watching, if you guys are watching, I think this will be something that those who are paying attention to my Vedic and Western synthesis, you're really going to get a lot out of this video. I put a lot into that presentation of showing everything that I got out of school becoming a tropical Vedic astrologer. So check out that video. It's coming out on Christmas, December 25th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just turned 30. That is where I'm presently at. I'm born 1991, and, you know, often I like to show this little picture here. Boop, doop, doop, doo. I'm showing you guys all my fun little slides and stuff while I've kind of got the moment here. So, those of you who know me, my name is Dustin Cormier. I'm a Leo ascendant, born with the Sun and Mars and Pluto in Scorpio. It's part of the reason why I like to do the digging that I do. I'm Sagittarius moon in the 5th house. This really shows a lot of my creative side. I'm in the year of the goat, 1991, in the day of the water horse. And I'm 30 years old. Currently going through my Saturn return. I'm just noticing we've got a comment here. Awesome. Shelly's, I believe. Queen Mama Beat. Thanks for watching. I'm glad you're digging it. So, I'm a Leo rising. I'm quite happy to say. I don't know if you couldn't tell. And the moon in the 5th house gives me a little bit more of that creative sort of energy. There's so much more I could say about myself. One thing that I will say, according to my understanding of my current point in my Vedic dashas, I've been in Venus Mahadasha since early 2000. This is important because Venus is my Atmakarika. Anybody who's watching, you know, if I've done a chart for you, I usually talk about some elements that I consider to be even more essential to the person than the big three that Western astrology knows. You know, the rising sign, the sun sign, the moon sign. In fact, usually if you come to me, those will probably be the last things that I'll talk about, because everybody can look on Google to learn about what a Leo rising is like and what Scorpio sun is like, and all other astrologers focus on that. As a Vedic astrologer, I really focus more on the main thing. The rising sign and its lord and the nature of that planet is very important. Everybody should focus on that in any reading, because it's a basic part of how you apply every moment in your life. It's the mouth of a clay gun, and everything comes out with the shape of the karma of the rising sign. And you got to deal with that shape in every sense. You've got Pluto in the 8th house, conjunct Mars, and it's debilitated. I as a Leo, I don't have that, but anybody as their rising sign has to deal with that energy as their rising sign. So the rising sign is very important. And one of my next big things that I talk about is the Atmakarika, meaning the planet in the schema of the first 7 planets that make up the 6 chakras: Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. The planet with the highest degrees is going to be your Atmakarika. It's considered to be the most basic soul essence planet. You will be amazed if you look up your Atmakarika and look up the characteristics of it. You are going to it'll completely change your perspective on what astrology is all about. So I'm, for example, I'm Leo rising. My Atmakarika is Venus. Venus rules the 10th house, Taurus, and the 3rd house, Libra, for a Leo rising. A big part of my life experience is being Venus. In fact, I would almost say that I'm Venus first, having a Leo rising experience. That feels very deeply true to me. And interestingly, Venus is my ruling planet, and I have Venus debilitated in the sign of Virgo. I think that there's a saving grace there. I believe that when a planet is your ruling planet, you deeply understand what it's all about, And even though I had the karma of being someone who had difficulty with relationships and relating as a lover to women and to men eventually, I had a lot of trouble experiencing who I am and being a part of that dynamic energy exchange of gender and of sexuality. And as I've gone through the gamut of it and done my own internal healing and self-realization experiences, I've kind of come to find that being Venus Atmakarika has given me an understanding really deeply of human psychology. Venus relates to Earth's understanding. In fact, Venus in the Vedas, Shukracharya, was considered to be one of two gurus. Jupiter, you got to understand the Vedic perspective. There's Devas, there's Asuras, and then there's humans. The human level is just Rajas, basically. Humans and Asuras share Rajas and Tamas. Humans are what we experience. Asuras are demons of personality, of egoistic lust and need. Although a demon might not necessarily, I'm spelling it like Daemon, as in parts of ourselves that we have to experience without attachment. And evading those things can sometimes be a form of attachment. There's many people who evade their sexual energy, thinking that they don't want to be attached to it, but then that demon is slowly building and becoming a blind spot for them. That often happens for people who get into brahmacharya and stuff like this, and this happened to me as well. I almost killed myself at certain points in my life. I mean, I would never kill myself, but damn it, sometimes I really wanted to, because of this interaction. It's a common thing. So, Asuras relates to experiences of human need that are necessary in order for us to equalize our connection to Earth, to stabilize harmoniously our bodies on Earth, in order that we can have the excess energy and resources and love to abundantly deal with self-realization and with Shiva and with challenges of using your mind magically. Hello, Lolo. Thanks for watching. So if we want to apply ourselves to our highest yogic disciplines, we need to let the dog out. Let it do its thing, let it come back, sit, good boy, now I can properly do my yoga. I mean, some people don't have that dog, and I guess they don't have to deal with that as much. If that's your karma, that's your karma. But I am very much a human who has a dog who needs to let that thing go for a walk, do its thing, in order that I can finally chill. I think different people will experience that differently. I'm going to answer your question as soon as I get this thought out, Brutus. So my point here is that as a Venus person, so my point here was that in the Vedic avatars, Jupiter was considered the guru of the Devas. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, once you've let the dog out, you're sitting in your meditation, then you're doing the Jupiter thing, the acrobat, the performer, who is making magic out of the abundance of resources that you've developed. Venus is the development of those resources. And Jupiter can't do its thing as well if we are not having a basically mediated human experience. Jupiter is the guru of the Devas. Venus, just as sacred, just as important, is the guru of the Asuras. And the Asuras will take over, and Indra will not be able to do what Indra has to do if the Asuras are winning like they sometimes do in in that classic literature. Indra meaning Jupiter, meaning our full oversight of all the energies that are coming through our energy system. Zeus, the thunderbolt that makes the highest change, relates with Jupiter. Indra with the thunderbolt. So these two need to work together. But for someone like me, who is Venus Atmakarika, I am deeply experiencing how to pull people away from the wrong understanding of the Asuras, which are ultimately a part of our human experience. And when I do astrology for people, I'm dealing with people's psychology. You know, I often get people coming in who are really powerful yogis, and they're climbing up this mountain, and you know, they decided not to bring water with them because they thought that it would be a harder challenge. And I try to explain to them that, like, the water of Venus, of enjoying your earth experience, is going to make you endure on your yogic sannyasin renunciation. It's going to make you endure better. As long as the water that's in your pouch is coming from Amrita, from divinity, from the true essence of what you're supposed to be, and not your attachment to ephemeral pleasures. So I'm a Venus person. I'm kind of all about, like, you know, what is it that's stopping you from immediately having a vehicle that will lead you to your sustainable fulfillment? Ernst Wilhelm just did a great series on love that I recommend everybody check out if you're interested in love and Venus and all these things. Venus is it's water. It's a sustainable cushion of the vehicle, so that you want to keep being in. You want to keep being a part of it. And this is what I do in my Vedic astrology practice. And it's interesting to me that I am a Venus Atmakarika person. And for those interested, I also have... I'm going to put out a video talking... it's going to be on Asheville Vedic Astrology's channel. It's going to be talking about the D60 chart, the D1 chart, and the D9 chart. The D60 is past life. The D1 is present incarnation in the physical world. And then the D9 is the psychedelic kundalini mysticism of a transcendental sense of all at the same time. And in that video, you're gonna see why it's important that what I'm talking about. But looking up Rahu and Ketu in your D60 chart will tell you a lot about where you're coming from and where you're going. I have Ketu in Taurus in my D60 chart. Venus is my Atmakarika, and I've been experiencing my Venus Mahadasha since 2007. For those who are into my astrology, that's a pretty big influence of confluence, as I would say. Now, Brutus has asked, is Venus the only developer of Jupiter's largesse? And how about Mars? How about the moon? I would say that you need to have all of these things in balance in order for each of them to do their best, Brutus. Venus and Jupiter were called the gurus of the Devas and the Asuras. That was their role, that is their role in our lives. And the guru is important, but what good is the guru without Mars, clamoring for the lessons given? What good is the guru without the moon that feels good about adapting to new aspects of itself that are more like itself? You know, what good are the gurus without the sense of the sun, a consistent sense of self that can abide through all the different lessons? So I was just more talking about what Venus is there, Brutus. And Brutus, to answer what you asked here, the day Chinese signs are great capsules of a native's basic persona. And yes, I appreciate you saying that, Brutus, because I feel me being the water horse so much. I'm just like such a out there guy, and the horse is such a part of my energy. As a water horse, you know, I don't feel that much of a dichotomy typically, Brutus, because I have too much water in my chart, in my Bazi Chinese astrology chart, and I can feel that. it's too much, like, it's a self-centricism that goes on there. But, you know, if somebody's a water horse, it doesn't mean that there's necessarily going to be a complication. If there's too much water in a person's Chinese astrology chart, or if there's too much of any of the elements, that's the only time that you'll feel tension. But being an animal whose nature is antagonistic to the heaven stem is not inherently bad. It's like having a planet that's debilitated. It can still perform very, very well. Just as a sort of example. I mean, really not even. Water horse is not a debilitation at all. So that wasn't a good example. But I think you see my point. For those interested, we're talking about Chinese astrology. I'm already messing up. I want to call it East Asian astrology, because it being considered to be strictly Chinese is kind of a historical misnomer. As my friend Nishi and I have been discussing. You're going to see me doing a video with Nishi coming out in a few months. So, the whole point of all that is that I'm in Venus Mahadasha, and I'm very much a Venus person, so I'm developing on important parts of what's going to be, I think, a root of my life for the rest of my life. So if you guys are digging what I've been putting out so far, it's going to pretty much be a lot of this until I die. So, rock and roll. That just seems to be where my brain needed to go in that moment. And I'm done school. That's a pretty cool feeling. But at least I'm done my Asheville Vedic Astrology. There's lots more that I still want to learn. And my K2 is in Taurus in the D60 chart, Brutus. I have K2 in Cancer in my D1 chart. But thank you for asking. I love that you're paying attention, pal. Now, with How to Rock Astrology, I've been doing it for a while, and I've really been wearing it out pretty good. I've been doing it like pretty strongly since, like, I think a year and a half ago, since the pandemic kind of started, a little bit before that actually. And I've been kind of obsessed with it for a little while. There's a lot that I want to do on How to Rock Astrology. And so this is what, I'm kind of aimed at talking about at this part of the video. I got some plans. Eventually we're going to talk about a book that's going to be an encapsulation of everything that I've been doing. I've kind of putting it in the works already. You should be seeing it, like, it's going to be a while before this thing comes together. I'd say like 4 or 5 years, something like that. We shall see. You'll never know what fate holds. But for How to Rock Astrology, next year, I've already got things lined up. You'll notice that I used to premiere every video, and now I'm not premiering each video. I want to surprise you guys. Instead of being like, okay, now you know months down the road what video is going to be coming out. I'm not doing it that way. I'm just, each week is going to be a sort of a different thing. Although usually I'm doing month series is what I'm planning on doing. This month we're talking about this series. This month we're talking about this series. This month we're talking about this series. And I've got a few things planned. One of them is to start talking from a book called Light on Relationships. I want to start exploring relationship astrology. It's something I'm interested in. Although I should say that most astrologers, I've come to realize this. I'm glad I went the way that I did and focused on an astrology which teaches about one person, about the self, not necessarily relationship astrology, because each person has their own Venus, their own Jupiter, their own Mars, their own moon. And these planets are going to explain pretty much what that person's relationship experience is going to be. You can see the lover that you're going to get in your chart. Mind you, the lover is what they are, but what they are to you is what's important, because you're the one having the experience and attracting them. And any partner that you get, they're going to have this chart and it's going to be different. They're going to have this chart and it's going to be different. If you abide by the superficial things of, oh, this person has this different thing, or, you know, this person has something different than my ex-lover, which means that, you know, maybe they'll be better, but they still have the good parts that I liked. And you can get pretty lost in that kind of thing. What you need to do instead is understand the love nature that you're putting out and attracting, and listen to God and divinity within your own heart. Because if you attach to the externals, you're not going to feel somebody who is truly reflecting the essence of yourself when they come. They could be right under your nose, but you're looking for someone who's Venus Atmakarika, who would blend well with my Darkarika in the 3rd house. Forget it. First know what you are, keep your eyes open to what comes to you in life, and love will come to you when it's supposed to come to you. That being said, I'm intrigued by relationship astrology and seeing synastry and seeing how you can see different things as a limb of, in the same way as you don't need astrology to know exactly who you are. You can just tune into your heart. But astrology is still an interesting exploration of what might come out. Same way with relationships. I want to do it in the same interesting, recreational, fascinating way. So I'm going to be doing a little reading from a book called Light on Relationships. It's by Robert Svedova, one of my favorite authors. Eventually, and I'd like to know what you guys think of this, eventually I'm going to do Moon and Venus combinations. You'll notice on my channel I did all 144 combinations of sun signs and Mars signs. Explain the sun sign a little bit and explain the Mars sign and how they interact together in a sexual way. That was a big part of my channel for a while there. Thank you, Mia Moore. You're getting where I'm at. Synastry Mia Moore has said synastry seems like it's trivial, and you're getting where I'm at. There is a book, this Light on Relationships book, that explains about relationships. It goes into detail, but the introduction to this book is what I plan on sharing in this series. And it is not trivial. It gives a very concise understanding of how we ought to approach relationships from a Vedic Jyotish perspective. And it basically explains what I just said. So that's going to be a good read for everybody. And yes, as Mia Moore has said, I think you're also digging my idea of the Moon and the Venus series. It's going to be going through all the moon signs, and then, you know, for example, I have the moon in Sagittarius. What is moon in Sagittarius like? I also have Venus in Virgo. What is Venus in Virgo like? And then finally, Venus is square to my moon. What is that going to say? What's that going to mean? What is that going to represent? And how are these planets going to experience that? It's a more complicated thing to do because the moon can either be malefic or benefic. And, you know, I'm going to do my best with that series, but I think I'll have some fun with it. Now, one of my biggest things that I'm doing with How to Rock Astrology right now, and for everybody listening, I'd like you to consider this. I'm currently, Saturn is transiting over my natal Saturn in Aquarius in my 7th house as a Leo rising. And I am finding Jupiter is in the same place too. And right now in the sky. It's going to be going into Pisces into my 8th house at the end of the month. But even the 8th house resonates with working with different people. I have been doing interviews with other astrologers on YouTube. I've recently had Mr. Babajit Khalid of Exotic Astrology. He was the first guy that I interviewed. I've recently done Michael Reed from Pulse of the Universe Academy. he's going to be coming on my channel, and I think I'm going to want to go on his channel as well. I've done an interview with Fiona Marks, who's the director of Asheville Vedic Astrology right now. I've done an interview with Simon Vorster. I'm very proud of that one. Simon Vorster is a Western astrologer whose expertise is evolutionary astrology. We talk a little bit about the outer planets. That's going to be coming up soon. And I've also talked with Nishi Pundit about East Asian medicine. That would be what people typically call traditional Chinese medicine, Bazi, and what me and Brutus were talking about, Chinese science, quote unquote. Although again, I'm getting out of calling them strictly Chinese, and I'm wanting to call them East Asian. So whenever I say East Asian medicine, I'm talking about what we typically consider today to be Chinese astrology. So me and Nishi talk about East Asian medicine versus the tropical horoscope. Very interesting conversation. That's going to be coming up in a few months. I currently am working on bringing Ernst Wilhelm onto the show. I'm very happy. I'm going to be very happy when that happens. So, for those watching, keep your eyes peeled. I'm going to be doing a new interview once a month. I already have interviews lined up till about May, and I'm only just starting. So if you think that I would mix well with any YouTubers that you know and love, please let me know, whether in the comments or whether just through personally or however you want to get that information to me. I'm looking to get out there. I'm looking to bring as many people as I can onto my show. This includes people with lots of subscribers, as well as people, you know, I was welcomed onto some astrologers' channels, and it's given me a lot of work, and I want to pay that forward. So any new astrologers who have YouTube channels that they're building up, if you can talk with me about a video idea that we can discuss that's unique and which will be different from anything I've done already. I mean, just general chatting is cool, but I want to get people's interviews on my channel who have less subscribers than me, because someone pulled their hand out. It was Stormy Grace in particular. There's a lady named Stormy Grace, and she let me on her channel. The video is on her channel, and it has like 1,200 views, and I've got a bunch of astrology clients from that video. So I'm looking to pay that forward. If anybody wants to do this thing with me, I'd love for my channel to be a promotional wagon for, you know, other people to be a part of the community. As long as we've jive or whatever, you know, and I'm pretty open. I jive with a lot of different people, so let's make that happen. If anybody sees it and feels like making any of those connections happen. Ultimately, I'm going to keep picking away at people that I see and love, and I'm going to be bringing people onto my channel in the coming bit. So I hope you guys enjoy that. And one thing I will say, I think part of my thing, being a Venus person, is that I'm somebody who bonds earthly needs and community. So I think that a big part of, I mean, even me being Leo rising and Venus ruling my 3rd house, I do a lot of seeking, a lot of, like, I love just recreationally doing this interview thing, sitting with people and just looking at all the different ways that we can create a video idea of a new gem of information that no one thought about this or that in this way before. And as I go through, I'm going to go through a lot of different people, and many of you probably know that the world of astrology is not the most universally nailed down field in terms of astronomical measurement, mathematical science, and understanding. The world is in very much a transitional period when it comes to astrology, where the internet has brought everybody's information to the surface. And as the years have gone on, many of us in the astrology community, not just through the internet, but even through books, and through having the money to read and explore different things with different people, but especially the internet, everyone's information from different cultures is coming to the surface, and we're finding that many people don't agree on what exactly astrology is all about. It happens a lot. The Ayanamsha debate is one of the key case in points that I would point to. The discovering of the Mahadasha system. Right now I'm working with Ernst's Dhruva Mula as galactic center with tropical coordinates. And that's what I've been working with. I was doing Kritika Ayanamsha for a little while there. I've backpedaled. It's a crazy thing to try to do because you can see into... I was practicing with Kritika Ayanamsha, and this changed all the Mahadashas of myself and my clients. In Kritika Mahadasha, in Kritika Ayanamsha, which is the idea that Kritika, the nakshatra, starts wherever Aries is, tropically. In that system, I am experiencing Rahu Mahadasha, and it seemed to be so real and true because of the difficult experiences I had in the last 20 years. I mean, I've had a difficult time the last little bit in some ways, and as an astrologer, I have to contend, is it because I was in Rahu Mahadasha and I was being challenged that way? Or is it because I was in Venus Mahadasha and my Venus is debilitated? And it's debilitated in the D1 chart as well as the Navamsha chart, which is a big, debilitation. Although, again, because I'm Venus Atmakarika, I'm humbled by all the experiences I've had and smiling now after. I went through Sati Sati. That was the really difficult thing because my moon is in Sagittarius. Now that Saturn is in Aquarius, I'm past Sati Sati, and that was the worst of it. So it's hard to say. I now think that I'm in Venus Mahadasha, which is Ernst's Ayanamsha system. And so anyway, I don't want to go too much into the detail of this stuff, but my point here is that there are many systems of astrology, and they all think about things in different ways. They think about the stars being in different places as compared to the signs. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm bringing many different astrologers onto my show. And I want to, with astrology, my understanding is I'm bringing sidereal people onto my show. And if we do a celebrity chart as an example, and they've been using sidereal, and I've been using tropical. Let's do a chart of Yogananda, for example. In tropical, Yogananda is Leo rising, and I believe in sidereal that Yogananda leans more towards Virgo rising. I think that's the case. But my point is that if we do a shared celebrity, we're going to have two different opinions on what's going on there, and sometimes. I'm trying to skip measurement and speak to method, which means that if I bring a sidereal astrologer on, like Babajit Kalit, for example, we don't need to talk about the specifics. We don't need to talk about our different ideas of Ayanamsha. We don't need to talk about sidereal, tropical, whatever. All I want to know from him in that moment at the time that we did our thing was, what's the Navamsha? What does it mean when this planet is in this place in the Navamsha? How is it different from the Rashi chart, etc.? And the sidereal astrologers of India have some very brilliant understandings of how to use these things. And sometimes they are rooted in what I, in my system, would call incorrect approaches. I'm not going to say that to them when I have them on my channel doing their thing, though. So this is what I'm trying to make you guys understand, is that there are times where I'm going to be revving the wheels of a vehicle that I don't necessarily agree with. And if you are going to come with me on this ride, I think it's important for everybody to keep on the back of your mind a place of skepticism, a place of objectivity, where any good scientist knows that when you're in an experiment, you don't try to hide the results. You don't try to make the results fit your preference. That's not scientific. We have to let the experiment give us what it is in the moment. And I'm going to use my intuition to see, okay, so you're saying that the planet in this part in the Navamsha, it acts in this way. And so you're saying that this is connected to this idea. I'm going to be working by affirmation on their part. And you, my audience, I recommend that you use discrimination when you see me agreeing with something. Because this is how Venus works. Just give me what you are, and we'll meet out here democratically and peacefully. That is what you'll be experiencing when I bring people onto my channel. So I wanted to give that caveat. I really can't wait. I've already done a few of these interviews, and I think it's doing a lot to help glue the astrology community together. Now, for those watching, I'm also very excited. I'm interested in the nakshatras right now. And the nakshatra videos that I'm going to be doing are going to be coming from the same place. People in one system believe that if the sun is at 8 degrees of Aries, that the sun will be in Kritika. People in another system believe that when the sun is at 8 degrees of Aries, it's actually in the nakshatra of Ashwini. When you're on my channel, no matter what the measurement is, we are going to be speaking to method. Meaning, when I talk about Kritika Ayanamsha, I'm going to try to separate it from the things that relate it to Aries. And when I talk about Ashwini Nakshatra, I'm going to talk about it and try to separate the things that relate it to Aries also. It's a difficult thing because much of the information about these nakshatras has come from cultures who operated with the narrative understanding that Ashwini is inherently connected to Aries, or that Rohini is necessarily connected to Taurus where the moon is exalted, etc. Many of the Indian literature on the nakshatras is blended in a way that is metaphysically inaccurate. Was culturally incidental but metaphysically inaccurate. This is Victakara is one of the great arbiters of this understanding, where there was in fact literature written about the nakshatras before the medieval times, where Indian astrologers married the signs to the stars. Literature existed in the Vedas before that happened, which talks about the nakshatras at their essence. And I am going to try to do both, but they'll be in different videos. I'm going to be doing, there'll be a month where it's like Kritika month, and we're all starting, and I'm going to read about Kritika from the Taittiriya Brahmana. And this is one of those ancient texts that came from the Krishna Yajurveda that is not astronomical in essence. It is numero-metaphysical, and it talks about the nakshatras, giving the essence of what the nakshatra is, without giving any astronomical basis of it being in Aries, it being Taurus, whatever. So Victor Kara and Ernst Wilhelm give translations from this text, the Taittiriya Brahmana, and we're going to read about that. Then we're going to read from another author named Rada, who talks about a narrative, a personality for the nakshatra, and she tends to abide by sidereal consciousness. However, her book, Unfolding the Nakshatra Stories, is very informative, and I am inviting everybody to reach in like I am with a little prodding stick, seeing all the gems of truth that relate to that nakshatra, and you and I together as we go through. I'm going to be trying to say, let's keep in mind that this is a sidereal astrologer who might be blending this personality arc of the nakshatra with the sign that it's in. I'm always going to be trying to say that and go forward. Unfortunately, this is how we have to learn about the nakshatras at some level, I think, is to take the pollution out of the literature that has come forth about them. And use the literature. I'm trying to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think Victor Kara, and there are some people who just want to completely let go of the literature that isn't strictly related to those Vedas, which are not astronomical in essence. That's what Victor Kara is trying to do. Take it from the Purana. Take it from the Krishna Yajurveda. Don't take it from astronomical medieval texts where people intuited that Ashwini must relate to Aries because it's ruled by Ketu and it's the first essence of ourselves and all these things. That's an intuited thing in that medieval era, which might not actually be Vedic in the sense. So we're going to try to do both, and I'll be discerning all along the way what's what. So the nakshatras are a part of what I'm doing on this channel as well. I'm just looking at some of our comments here. Brutus has asked, just for the sake of it, I don't find antardashas. I don't really use them. I actually use the first level of antardasha. I am in the same one you are, Brutus. I'm Venus Mahadasha with Mercury as the subdasha. I should be finished at the end of next year. Nice to meet you in the middle in the field, dude. My ascendant falls in the nakshatra of Ashlesha, which I'm sure many people will be like, oh yeah. So, we're going to get into the nakshatras on this channel. We're going to get into light on relationships. We're going to get into sextrology a little bit more eventually, although I'm not huge on sextrology. It's a bit trivial in the sense of that Mia Moore said. That's going to be something that I do when I'm essentially kind of bored in between my bigger projects. Like the sextrology books are cool is because I can just get stoned and just read what's in front of me and just have a good time just talking about the sexy things in the book, and I'm also making a YouTube video at the same time. Fun and enjoyable, but it's not as high octane as my consciousness should be applying itself to. So the sextrology thing we'll play with once in a while, but my instinct tells me that I'm only getting sharper. I've been doing enough yoga for the past few years that I'm letting go of the need to not be at my highest potential. It's what it feels like to me at this present moment. So that's where I'm at with sextrology. So the next thing I want to talk about is a book that I'm going to be getting into. Well, basically, I was telling you guys that I want to write a book. Very excited. I love writing. I've already written one book called Solipsis Eclipse. You can find it on Amazon, and it's a poetry book, a collaborative poetry effort between me and an illustrator and another poet in my life in Ontario. You can find it on Amazon right now. If you can't find it, it's because I've got to work out email me if you feel like reading or getting that book, and I'll put it back on Amazon. Just right now, I think we had a debit issue thing that I got to work out. But email me if you want that. But that was a poetry book. It's essentially an ecstatic, psychedelic poetry book experience. It was called Solipsis Eclipse. The Eclipse of Solipsism by the Fact of Divinity. So this next book is going to be my first venture into something that is strictly a functional, practical, nonfiction manual for my present stance in the world of astrology. It's going to be called Howtorockspirit, New Horizons in East Asian, Western, and Jyotish Synthesis. Yeah, you're right. Well, it's funny, Brutus. Brutus says, since I'm in Mercury sub-dasha, I'm in a Mercury period, and this is a good time to be writing my book. And he's right. The guts of this book are unfolding like I'm barfing it out without even trying. So I would say that's a great comment, Brutus. I am making the guts of this book, and like I said, it's got three essential ideas, but it's a synthesis effort that I want to express here. I talked about this with Nishi Pundit, and you're going to be seeing that video coming out soon. Essentially what I'm talking about, me and Nishi got to this great point in the conversation. He's really good. He's from Wailua Healing Arts. And what he told me that just was like, oh my God, I get it, is that when he does any kind of healing thing for anybody, he studies their chart a bit, I believe, but I think what he told me is that I should say that before he even reads the chart, I believe, he does a consultation, brings the person into his office, his room, whatever it is, into the peaceful environment that it is, and the person sits down, they open the heart space between each other, and then Nishi gets a clear vision of where the person is in their lives and what's actually bothering the person. So that, he's not just reading the person's chart and saying, okay, I have an idea of what's wrong with you. Because you can never really know until you're sitting with the open heart space of the other person. When you're sitting with the formless experience of that person's true experience. Then you can apply the form of astrology to get some clues as to where that energy essence is going. So his whole thing was sitting with this heart center of the person before even going into astrology. And what we came upon this conversation is important because, there are things that you can say in your Jyotish horoscope that a person might have, for example, a lot of fire in their chart. And typically we would associate this in some ways with Pitta. It's the Ayurvedic dosha of Pitta, where a person has got just a bit too much heat. Of that certain energetic heat in the Vedic, in the tropical horoscopic sense. This brings about Pitta dosha, and sometimes that's good for a person's energy, but sometimes it's too much. Now, if I'm trying to explain to a person that he's got too much Pitta and how to deal with that, I also have to consider that the person could be born at a certain month, at a certain day, at a certain year, where they have an overabundance of East Asian chi fire energy coming from the heart, because they've got so much wood liver energy that it's my apologies, folks. What I wanted to say here is that they actually have a lack of fire energy. So you've got Pitta energy in your horoscope, but you've got too much water energy in your chi energy, in your East Asian medicine influence. Which means that if you're telling the person that he's got to calm down the fire in the horoscopic sense, you might be leading them astray from the fact that there is some type of fire in their metaphysical sphere that they do need to keep up. They don't have enough of the heart qigong energy, the heart qi energy that's opening them to a different meaning of the fire, of the symbol of what fire is. Fire is one thing in Western and Jyotish horoscope. Fire is a completely different thing in East Asian medicine. And if we tell the person that fire is the problem, they are going to get confused on another energetic basis. So this is why in my book, I'm going to be trying to get people to be centered on this heart experience when you're doing a consultation as a healer. So, my friend Jamie Lyles is watching us. I appreciate you hanging with us, Jamie. So this is kind of the consciousness that I'm going to be looking to come from when I do this book. I'm going to be talking about the differences between them. You'll see more about the essence of that part of the East Asian influence when you watch mine and Nishi's conversation. The book is also going to talk about all of the differences between Jyotish and Western, including the outer planets, how to define the outer planets, which is a succinctly Western phenomenon, using them in the Vargas, for example, or when you have an outer planet connected to the Atmakarika, or when you have, let's say that you've got Pluto transiting Capricorn and you are in Saturn Mahadasha. What is Pluto going to do for that Mahadasha's experience? These are the kind of mixings that I'm going to be looking to do in this book. I'm really, in a lot of ways, I'm just going to be describing the essence of certain things that I've gotten from my school. For example, Rahu and Ketu. Rahu and Ketu is not new to the West or to Jyotish. But when you've got one foot in both camps, there are understandings that you can get. Ultimately, though, with Rahu and Ketu, I'm taking the Jyotish understanding of it and giving it to Westerners. There are times, this book is really coming from the place of, you're a Westerner and I'm a Westerner, but I'm a Westerner who's also gotten into Vedic Jyotish. I'm going to explain to you as a Westerner what you're missing in Vedic Jyotish. That's where the book is coming from. So I'm going to talk about what the Vargas are. What exactly is the Navamsha chart? What exactly are the Jaimini Karakas? Why is it that the planet with the highest degrees in a sign is considered to be the Atmakarika? What does it mean exactly? And I might even do formulas for the Atmakarika Lord for each rising sign. For example, if you're a Leo rising, what does it mean that Venus is my Atmakarika? Venus rules the 3rd and the 10th house. So I'm going to be focused on exploring different ways to go about my career. Exploring different ways, 3rd house, about going about my career, 10th house. As a Leo rising, Venus Atmakarika is going to facilitate that experience. So I'm going to make a YouTube series talking about all those. So it's one of the first things that I speak to when I actually do a session with a client. We're going to talk about Shadbala in this book, and I'm going to talk about the difference between Jaimini and Parashara, and I'm going to talk about the D60 chart, in particular, Rahu and Ketu in the D60 chart. How Ketu in the D60 chart resonates with a deep, incidental earth essence that all the karma going forward has to deal with. Wow, we've got another YouTuber watching who has in the last of the Venus Mahadasha phase, just like Brutus and I are. Very cool. And that's Scribble Bites. Nice to see a scribble. So, that is what is going to be coming with this book. And all of these things that I'm talking about, that's going to be happening in this book, you're going to see it fleshed out on my channel. I'm kind of, I'm almost like I'm doing these things with these interviewers, making these videos, talking with these other YouTubers about these things, and seeing how the data comes out, and then I watch my own videos, and then I'm writing a book about it. So that's where I'm very much at in my journey, folks. So it's going to be some fun when I finally get that book happening. And I hope that you guys enjoy the book and enjoy all of that and what I've got in store for it. If anybody ever has ideas for more things that I could be thinking about in regards to this book, or more videos, if anybody ever has any questions about anything that you think might spark my intuition to things that need to be heard in the astrology world, I will find that useful. So always feel free to fill me in on what you think about that. So that is what is happening in the future of this channel. I want to thank everybody who is here, who's been watching and supporting me. It means so much to me that I have a community who gives a darn about what I've been doing as an astrologer. My present intention right now, I've already given a glimmer of what you guys are going to see happening with Dustin Cormier, which is that in the same way that me and Nishi talked about this heart space, which any healer wants to get to first, before they start to dissect the many different metaphysical forms of healing that are available, meditation, heart space is kind of where I'm really interested in being seated as a teacher, as a philosopher, and as a practicer, an engager of Shukracharya, Venus. I want people, if people are going to come to me, I don't want to fascinate them with the form of astrology as the sole thing. I want astrology to be a limb of the true heart center. And that's why going forward, eventually, once I'm done with this obsession I have with astrology, once I've written my book, and once I've been doing How to Rock Astrology for maybe another 2 or 3 or 4 years, I'm going to start to let go of How to Rock Astrology and put my focus into How to Rock Spirit. It's one of my older channels. It has at present like 12,000 subscribers, and I'm going to be coming back to my focus as a general podcaster and spiritual yogi, psychedelic practitioner. Brutus is saying, how about a central thesis that intrigues you most about the synthesis of the two astrological systems? Cool, Brutus. That's a great way to wordify something that I do want to do. I think that I'll have all these little sections in the book talking about the different pieces, and then yes, I will have a central spine, a central thesis that talks about my deepest points that I've gotten from integrating Jyotish and Western as well as East Asian medicine. So, essentially, once I'm done with the book, once I'm done with How to Rock Astrology, I'm going to be focusing on that heart center place, and it's going to involve psychedelics, I think, and it's going to involve music, it's going to involve mantra and chanting and true heart-centered stuff. That's where I'm going to be headed eventually, but I want to contribute to the world of Veda before I leave for the infinite enjoyment of the heart. And I'm going to try to bring it into both. That's what I try to do on my channel, is that I'm always, astrology is like a finger pointed at the moon. Don't mistake the finger pointed at the moon for the moon itself. Still, it's a good pointer. If I was going to contribute to any world of knowledge, I'm glad that I chose the Veda. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a few folks. I appreciate you guys giving me some clues and things to think about. I'm going to be able to check out your comments as we go along.